All right, we are here at my tiny worm bin. In the middle of the week, I actually checked on it and the lid itself had some excess moisture on it, and I took it off for 4 or 5 hours. The moisture went away and I've put it on. That was about 3 days ago, and I don't have any moisture back. So I just kind of gave it a boost of dryness and that worked out. So we'll check the moisture as we're going on in this bin, but there was 3 kind of things I wanted to look at. One was the last feeding, see how it did in here. And then I also want to start a new way of feeding these bins. I've got 3 of them and I'm gonna try the same thing in each bin. And then finally, I'm just gonna kind of give you an insider look of how I store my coffee. And right away, I'm seeing these red wigglers right on top, which is fantastic. I think that's because it's pretty moist throughout here. I really think this is a good moisture for this bin. We're at day 36. I think our last feeding was kind of its 1 month birthday, and every time I pull to the side, the worms are wiggling away from the light. The feeding zone is right here through the middle, but I'm just gonna kind of dig in here. Here's another fat one. They really are looking big and healthy. It's almost like a deep purple right there, that worm, and on the bottom of them on the other side, it's just a lighter color. Now I can definitely feel it more moist than I am used to, and maybe a little bit more moist than last time. So that makes sense that I saw that condensation, but it still is good. I mean, you can see, squeeze it together and it kind of sticks together, but yet it is clumpy. And the worms seem to be happy as can be. So let's kind of go towards the middle. And we'll see if we see any of the last feeding, which had bread, apple cores, lettuce, tomato, papaya, some grapes. See if we find any of that in here. And then a couple feedings before that, we had banana, and something that I'm seeing right here is the stem of a banana, and I'm seeing a lot of mites. So I'm just gonna rest here for a second. All right, even without the benefit of time lapse, I could see a lot of mites in there, and there's a worm that has made his or her home in this stem of the banana. And then also here's the stem of the grapes that we had, and a couple of the smushed grapes right here. So I find that mites really enjoy fruit, or I should say I find them congregating around fruit. And then when the bin is more moist, I also see more mites. So we may think about drying this out if we want to get rid of those mites, but they are probably isolated to just where the food was. It's not like they're overrunning the bin. And they also help the bin, help to decompose the food so the worms can get to it and make their castings. All part of the ecosystem in here. All right, a little bit of clumping I'm finding just because of the paper. And another, this must be a little bit of fruit or something, because I see some mites there too. And I'm also seeing little tiny potworms in there, something I haven't seen, or maybe I haven't gotten close enough to look at them before, but I hadn't seen in this bin earlier. And again, I think that's all related to the higher moisture content. It's almost spongy. And I think that is just the amount of bedding we have in here, and it's slowly getting broken down, and it's really looking good. This is a skin of something. Potato, probably. I think it's probably potato, but they're really not going after it because I've seen it a few times in here. So every time I run into it, I'm just gonna make it smaller and smaller. All right, I think we can start setting up the feeding zone because we've kind of aerated everywhere in here. I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing, other than, you know, the mites and potworms. Nothing to be too alarmed at. And this is just a mush of something, probably banana peel, but also a little bit of green leafy part right here. And I think this is a string of a tea bag attached to a banana peel. It's just, these tea bags are disintegrating, but the strings apparently might be synthetic material. All right, so let's start to create a feeding zone. And usually I make a long feeding zone right down the middle, but I'm actually gonna make a hole here because let me show you what we're gonna do. This is a drink holder that we got at a farmer's market. They are selling strawberry shakes. I live kind of where strawberry capital of Florida is. And I've cut a piece out so that we can lie it right down in here. And that is where I wanna put the food scraps. So the idea is I put the food scraps in there, and maybe the worms will all kind of congregate right here, and we'll see if there'll be a pretty big separation of lack of worms around it, but a lot of worms right there. And this is what I had in mind for the feeding. We've got some potato skins from mashed potatoes we made, papaya, apple cores, strawberries, a pear core, just a lot of food. Now it had been frozen and then totally thawed out, so it's a little bit more mushy than I typically have. And these grapes are still almost like little balloons. So I'm just gonna kind of crush them so that the worms can immediately have access to them. Try and do this without squirting myself in the eye there. And then we'll just kind of mush this stuff in here. Now I'm gonna cover it up and I'm gonna put some bedding on top so it's not like they can only go through the holes in this. They're certainly gonna be able to get there from on top. But what I don't wanna do is just put a whole lot of bedding mixed in with it. I wanna see almost how much the food turns into castings just by being right there. I'll put that moisture from this, whoops, almost dropped it, right in there. All right, so we'll add some bedding on top. And then I just wanted to show you the coffee. This is a container that holds all my coffee that we drink, and we usually only make 2 cups at a time, and we do that with a Keurig. And here's the Keurig non-paper filter that we use. So every morning after we drink our coffee, I just kind of put the coffee inside like that. Usually I'll get it all. And it'll stay wet here, and what happens is it'll get some mold, that kind of thing, and you can see the color difference right here. And when I come to do one of the worm bins, what I'll do is I'll put the lid on it like this, and I kind of shake it up and mix it up. That way, any kind of microbial content in here or molds are all mixed up. And then what I do is I come in the worm bin, and then I'll just add some coffee. So it's just another way to add another food source that's highly granulated, but also comes with its own set of microbes. So that's kind of the background on my coffee. All right, so we've put all the feeding in, and actually here's a whole coffee bean, which is hard as a rock, but I bet you by the next time we feed this, it will be soft, because I ran into one a couple feedings ago and it was completely soft, and it really shocked me because I'm used to beans being hard. But let's go ahead and cover this up. I take that back. Before we cover this up, let's make sure that we put some grit on, and that is in the form of pulverized eggshells. I got a little cue from behind the camera there that I forgot something. So there we go. Now we're ready to cover things up. And I have 2 other worm bins if you're new to my channel. One is a 20-gallon fabric pot worm bag that I keep outside. Another one is a Vermihut tower, each kind of unique bins that you kind of work in a different way. And I do many experiments in each of them. So go ahead and check out my channel, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell. I'd appreciate it. But I think that's going to be it for this feeding. So I hope everybody's having a great day, and happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.